They laughed when I held back my bullets, called me a coward while they wasted theirs on shadows and ego. My squad leader slapped the rifle from my hands in front of everyone, screaming I didn't deserve to be there. But when that final moment came, when one bullet was all that stood between survival and massacre, they finally understood why I never missed. If you've ever been called weak for being careful or mocked for thinking differently, this story is for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe because you won't believe how this ends. My name is Ria, and I used to be a military sharpshooter before I went private, not the kind who racks up kills for bragging rights or posts about body counts like they're badges of honor. No, I'm the type who understands that in the real world, ammo isn't unlimited. Every bullet you waste is a life you might not be able to save when it actually matters. I learned that lesson the hard way, watching good soldiers die because someone got trigger happy at the wrong moment. So I made myself a promise. I would never fire unless I was certain, never waste a round on maybes or fear, only precision, only purpose. That philosophy made me good at what I do. It also made me a target for ridicule, especially on this mission. We were a 6-person extraction team, hired for a high-stakes operation deep in hostile territory. The kind of job where failure means a body bag and success means a paycheck big enough to disappear for a year. Our target was a defector hiding in an abandoned industrial complex, someone with intelligence critical enough that governments were willing to pay mercenaries like us to pull them out. It should have been straightforward. Get in, locate the asset, extract before enemy forces lock down the area. Clean and surgical. But nothing is clean when you're working with people who think volume equals value. My team was composed of the kind of soldiers who measured their worth by how much noise they could make. Led by Tyson, a man whose ego was louder than his rifle and twice as dangerous. He had that aggressive swagger that comes from too many easy victories and not enough consequences. Always shouting orders, always the first to open fire, always absolutely certain he was the smartest person in the room. His second in command was Bridger, who spent more time mocking others than actually thinking tactically. The rest of the team followed their lead like puppets, laughing on cue, shooting on command, never questioning whether spraying bullets at every shadow was actually smart strategy. And then there was me, the only woman on the team and the only one who didn't believe in turning every engagement into a fireworks display. From day one, they made it clear I didn't fit their idea of what a soldier should be. I'd take single, calculated shots while they emptied magazines at distant targets that barely posed a threat. I'd hold position and wait for clear opportunities while they rushed forward, guns blazing. Every time I conserved ammunition, every time I chose patience over panic, they saw it as weakness. Bridger started calling me Princess Precious because I treated my bullets like they mattered. The others would laugh, elbowing each other like schoolyard bullies who'd found their favorite target. I tried explaining the tactical advantage of conservation, tried showing them that my hit rate was nearly perfect while theirs hovered around 30%, but Tyson would shut me down before I finished a sentence, waving his hand dismissively like my experience meant nothing. In his world, real soldiers didn't think. They reacted. They dominated through force, not finesse. And anyone who operated differently was either scared or incompetent. I could see it in their eyes every time they looked at me. They didn't just disagree with my methods, they genuinely believed I didn't belong there. The first real insult came on day one, and it set the tone for everything that followed. We encountered a small group of hostiles positioned near the outer perimeter of the complex. Nothing serious, just a few scouts who hadn't even spotted us yet. Tyson immediately opened fire, and the rest of the team followed like they'd been given permission to empty their magazines. Bullets ricocheted off metal structures, shattered windows that were already broken, tore through empty air. They were shooting at movement, at possibilities, at their own adrenaline. I stayed calm, watched through my scope, and when one of the scouts actually turned in our direction, I dropped him with a single shot to the center mass clean. Efficient. Then I waited. Bridger noticed immediately. He lowered his rifle, stared at me like I'd just committed some unforgivable sin, and laughed that cruel laugh that makes your skin crawl. What's wrong, Rhea? Afraid to get your hands dirty? This isn't a shooting range, sweetheart. The others joined in, their laughter echoing through the ruins around us. I felt my jaw clench, my hands grip the rifle tighter, but I didn't respond. What could I say that they'd actually hear? They'd already decided who I was in their story. The weak link, the cautious one, the woman who didn't understand what real combat looked like. But it got worse. So much worse. On the second night, we gathered for a mission briefing around a small fire, reviewing our progress and checking supplies. Tyson went through the ammo count, reading off numbers like a teacher grading papers. Bridger had burned through 57 rounds. Another team member, 53, Tyson himself, had used 64. Then he got to my count. 8 rounds, just 8. The silence that followed was deafening. And then Tyson exploded. 8? Are you kidding me? You think you're better than us? His voice was so loud it seemed to shake the air itself. I tried to stay composed, tried to explain that I'd hit every target I'd aimed at, that my efficiency was an asset, not a liability, but he didn't want to hear it. Bridger jumped in, his voice dripping with contempt. She's dead weight, probably can't even shoot straight. The team erupted in laughter again, making jokes about me carrying bullets as souvenirs, asking if I was saving them for a special occasion. One of them suggested I was too scared to pull the trigger when it mattered. Another said maybe I should just stay at base camp next time and let the real soldiers handle the work. Every word felt like a knife, cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. I could feel tears stinging behind my eyes. But I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. I wouldn't prove them right by breaking down. Then came day 3, and the moment that shattered whatever fragile respect I thought I'd earned. We hit heavy resistance during our approach to the extraction point. I took position on elevated ground, providing cover fire with the same precision I'd maintained throughout the mission. Every shot counted. Every shot hit. But Tyson didn't see skill. He saw hesitation. He stormed over to me in the middle of the firefight, his face red with rage, screaming that I wasn't pulling my weight, and then he did something I'll never forget. He slapped the rifle right out of my hands. It clattered to the muddy ground, the weapon I'd kept immaculate now covered in dirt and grime. He got in my face, so close I could smell the sweat and gunpowder on him, and shouted, "You're a liability! You don't deserve to carry that weapon!" I knelt there in the mud, my hands shaking as I picked up my rifle, feeling the weight of their contempt pressing down on me like a physical force. Bridger spat near my boots, his disgust palpable. "Should have left you at base." The others had already turned away, dismissing me completely. But in that moment, something inside me hardened. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their respect. I just needed to be ready for the moment when their recklessness caught up with them, and deep down, I knew that moment was coming. It came faster than even I expected. We reached the extraction point, a fortified compound that intelligence had marked as lightly defended. The moment we breached the perimeter, I knew something was catastrophically wrong. This wasn't an extraction point. It was a trap. Enemy forces swarmed from every direction, appearing from hidden positions we'd never scouted. The air exploded with gunfire, bullets tearing through the space around us like angry hornets. We were pinned down immediately, caught in a kill box with nowhere to go. Tyson started screaming orders, but his voice was drowned out by the chaos. His team, his aggressive, confident soldiers, suddenly looked like terrified children, and they did exactly what I knew they'd do. They panicked. Bullets flew everywhere, spraying wildly into buildings, into shadows, into empty space. Bridger was firing full auto, his rifle jumping in his hands as he burned through magazine after magazine. Others were doing the same, their training abandoned in favor of pure survival instinct. The amount of ammunition they were wasting was staggering, but they couldn't stop themselves. When you've built your entire identity around overwhelming force, you don't know how to respond when force isn't enough. I stayed low, taking careful shots only when I had clear targets, watching their ammo counters drop with terrifying speed. Every wasted bullet was a countdown to disaster. 20 minutes into the firefight, Tyson's voice cut through the noise. "Ammo check! Everyone report!" One by one, the responses came back like death sentences. Out. Empty. 2 mags left. Out. The confidence had drained from their voices, replaced by something raw and desperate. Bridger reported 3 rounds remaining, his usual smugness completely gone. Tyson had 5 left, and I could see the realization dawning on his face even before he turned to me. Every eye suddenly locked in my direction, and the question hung in the air unspoken. I kept my voice steady, almost casual. 43 rounds. The silence that followed was profound. You could see it hitting them all at once, the mathematics of their failure. The woman they'd mocked, humiliated, called a coward, was now the only thing standing between them and annihilation. Tyson's face went pale, sweat streaming down his temples, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't find words. The same hands that had slapped my rifle away now trembled as they gripped his nearly empty weapon. But we didn't have time for their shame. We had a bigger problem. We found the defector, Dr. Marin Volkov, hiding in a basement storage room. She was injured, bleeding from a leg wound, but clutching a hard drive like it was her firstborn child. This was what we'd come for, intelligence worth millions and countless lives. But between us and the extraction helicopter was 200 yards of open ground, and covering that ground was an enemy sniper nest, elevated position. Perfect sightline, impossible to approach. Tyson tried to take the shot with his last 5 bullets. Every single one missed. Bridger went next, his hands shaking so badly I could see the tremor from where I stood. He fired his 3 remaining rounds, each one disappearing into the distance without effect. The sniper remained untouched, and worse, they'd now pinpointed our position. A shot rang out, and our communications officer dropped, blood spreading across his chest before anyone could react. The reality settled over us like a shroud. We were trapped, outgunned, and running out of time. The helicopter couldn't land while that sniper controlled the exit route, and we couldn't move Dr. Volkov across open ground without getting cut down. This was the scenario every soldier fears, the moment where all your training, all your bravado, all your confidence means absolutely nothing. Tyson turned to me, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something in his eyes that looked almost human. Fear. Raw, unfiltered fear. His voice cracked when he spoke, all the authority stripped away. "You have to take that shot. You're our only chance." The man who'd slapped the rifle from my hands, who'd called me a liability in front of everyone, was now begging me to save his life. The irony wasn't lost on anyone there. Bridger wouldn't even look at me, his head down, shoulders slumped in defeat. The others just stared, waiting, their futures hanging on whether the woman they'd ridiculed could do what they couldn't. I assessed the situation with the cold calculation I'd trained myself to maintain. The sniper was 800 yards out, elevated position, wind gusting unpredictably across the open ground. Visibility was poor from the dust and smoke of the firefight. For anyone else on that team, this would be an impossible shot, a prayer throw into the darkness hoping for a miracle. But I'd spent years preparing for exactly this kind of moment. Not the easy shots, not the spray and pray chaos. The one shot that matters, the shot that makes the difference between everyone going home or everyone dying in a foreign country nobody back home could find on a map. I had 43 rounds, but I knew the truth that they were only just beginning to understand. I only needed one. I set up my position, feeling the familiar weight of the rifle against my shoulder, breathing slowly to calm my racing heart. Around me, everything seemed to slow down. I could hear Bridger's ragged breathing, could feel Tyson's eyes burning into my back, could sense the entire team holding their breath. This was my moment, the validation I'd never asked for, but was being forced to provide anyway. I looked through my scope, calculated wind speed and bullet drop, adjusted for the distance and elevation. The enemy sniper came into focus, just a shape behind reinforced cover, barely visible. Most people would see an impossible target. I saw an opportunity. My finger rested on the trigger. 1 breath. 2. The world contracted to just me and that distant figure. Everything I'd endured, every insult, every moment of humiliation, it all funneled into this single point of focus. I wasn't shooting for redemption. I wasn't shooting to prove them wrong. I was shooting because this was who I'd always been. Precise. Patient, deadly when it mattered. I exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against my shoulder, the sound sharp and clear. Through my scope, I watched the enemy sniper's head snap back, their body crumpling out of sight, direct hit. 800 yards, one bullet. The path was clear. But the mission wasn't over. The sniper's death had cleared our exit route, but it also alerted every enemy fighter in the complex to our exact position. They came at us from multiple directions, desperate to prevent our escape, and suddenly, I became the team's lifeline. Every shot I took dropped a threat. Every round I'd carefully conserved was now saving the lives of the men who'd mocked me for saving it. Bridger got pinned down behind a concrete barrier, 3 fighters closing in on him. I dropped all 3 with shots so precise they didn't even have time to realize what was happening. Tyson nearly took a bullet to the head, but I eliminated his attacker before the trigger could be pulled. Dr. Volkov stumbled on her injured leg, and I provided cover while someone carried her. My bullets creating a corridor of safety through absolute chaos. I moved through that battlefield like everything I'd ever trained for had led to this single moment. Fluid, calm, deadly efficient. When the extraction helicopter finally arrived, rotors beating the air into submission, the team scrambled aboard in a desperate rush. I was the last one in, still firing covering shots as we lifted off, watching the complex shrink beneath us. When we finally cleared the danger zone and I checked my rifle, I had 7 rounds remaining. 7. After saving all of them. The men around me sat in stunned silence, the reality of what had just happened settling over them like a weight they'd carry forever. 48 hours later, we were in a safe house for debriefing. Dr. Volkov's intelligence prevented a major attack, saved hundreds of lives, shifted the entire operational landscape. Command reviewed the combat footage and ammo logs, and when they reached my performance, everything stopped. The commanding officer looked directly at me and said words I'll never forget. Textbook precision under pressure. This is how professionals operate. In the background, I could see Tyson and Bridger, heads down, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The same men who'd laughed at my conservation were now being shown, in front of senior leadership, exactly what real skill looked like. Later, in a quiet moment away from the others, Tyson found me. He approached slowly, like someone walking toward a judge for sentencing. His voice shook when he spoke. "I was wrong about everything. You saved us." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt something I didn't expect. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just a quiet understanding of who he was and who I'd always been. I kept my voice calm but firm. "I didn't save you to prove you wrong, Tyson. I saved you because that's who I am. But you'll carry this moment for the rest of your career. The day you almost got your team killed because you measured strength in noise instead of impact." I walked away, leaving him standing there with the truth. Bridger watched from a distance, no words left, just the heavy shame of someone who'd learned a lesson far too late. They called me weak for being careful, mocked me for thinking ahead, humiliated me for refusing to waste what I might need to save lives. But in the end, it wasn't their aggression that won the day. It was my patience, my precision, my refusal to let their ridicule change who I was. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is hold back when everyone else is losing control. Save your energy for the moment that matters. Because when that moment comes, when everything is on the line, they won't be laughing anymore. They'll be thanking you. If this story reminded you that being underestimated is just preparation for proving them wrong, smash that like button, share your own story in the comments. I read every single one. And subscribe because I've got more stories about people who won by staying true to themselves when everyone doubted them. Remember, real strength isn't loud, it's precise.